grand opening, grand closing. Welcome, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers. It's your only friend in these YouTube streets, Puerto77, back with another video. Before I get to the video, just want to do an announcement for this week. The 60 Frames No Lag podcast will not be airing this Tuesday. It will now be airing Wednesday just for this week, due to the PlayStation Showcase. The PlayStation Showcase will be going on this Wednesday. Therefore, instead of having a podcast the day before the showcase, where pretty much it would just most likely be a conversation on anticipation and maybe what we think might go on, I think it's better to talk about and have the podcast on what actually did happen. But if I were to do that on the regularly scheduled Tuesday, we would have to wait a whole week to get that done. So I'd prefer just to opt to delay the podcast by one day. So the 60 Frames No Lag podcast will be airing Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, and the crew will be ready to talk about what we saw on the showcase, and hopefully, Sony knocks out the park. I absolutely can't wait to discuss about the showcase itself and not, assume or make predictions. I think that's kind of boring, and most of the time it's just wishful thinking. I'd rather just talk on what we actually seen. So, hey, I hope to see you there on this channel Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Go to Google and, look it up at your specific time zone. But on to the topic at hand, which is the recent, I don't want to say announcement, but a discussion. Jim Ryan was doing an interview and he made some particular comments, and one particular comment was that he noticed that PlayStation games, the 2 to 3 year cycle going to PC was so far been the best fit. Let's knock out some caveats, okay? At any point in time, Sony can change their mind on their strategy for PC. Businesses always adapt to whatever metrics that they have about financial planning. Number two, he technically didn't say every game, so there could still be games that release sooner on PC or even day and date on PC. I would imagine that if there's any games or any game that goes day and date on PC, it will most likely be free to play. Or maybe, some type of gas game, games as a service. I could imagine those games potentially being day and date on PC and continue to be on PS4, especially if it's free to play, because those type of games garner the most success through the amount of audience that play the game, because the actual monetization of the game is through money transactions and not game sales itself. So I could potentially see that. But the main crux of this conversation is the reaction of his statement. The fact that in 2023, as we get deeper into the gen, Sony has not truly embraced PC as a side-by-side device along with the PS5. This is in contrast to what Microsoft has done with the Xbox since 2016-17, when they first announced they're putting games on PC. They embraced PC as part of the Xbox ecosystem. Many felt that PlayStation will follow suit because this is the new business model. It's all about reaching out to the massive audience on devices that's already in the hands of consumers. Yet here we are in 2023, PlayStation is still talking about consoles as their primary method to deliver games and their primary focus of effort. Now, over the last 2 years, as PlayStation and Jim Ryan and other figureheads of the PlayStation brand mentioned, more games coming to PC, whole slate of games coming, people thought that eventually Sony will bite the bullet and make the decision to make everything day and date. But with this recent news announcement, or with this recent interview, and Jim Ryan saying that so far the strategy of 2 to 3 years going to PC, seems like a good strategy, that kind of put some gamers in the community, not the PlayStation community, but on other platforms, through a loop, and kind of shocking, because they were expecting Sony to be closer and closer towards day and date PC and not still talk about 2 to 3 years, right? So you see this reaction, for example, this one. I chose this one because I think this is possibly the best example to use. Some examples are from fanboys and people who argue in bad faith. I didn't want to show that because that's just I mean, sure, it'll probably be entertaining to you guys, but it's not worth the conversation. You know, the point of this video is to try to bring a little education, you know, so that way people can understand who, you know, people who are not on PlayStation, or people who don't prefer PlayStation, or people who have a PlayStation but that's not their preferred console, to really understand why this decision is important for PlayStation gamers who buy the console. Right? So you have this one Twitter account, and it says day and date will also be fair because it doesn't affect console owners' ability to play and enjoy their game. Not sure why there's this rise in anti-PC sentiment. I don't play PC games, but I certainly don't begrudge them being able to play the games either. So the problem is because fanboys, or the trash talking portion of console war, has taken over the conversation, when in reality it has nothing to do with console war. Sure, are there, you know, fanboys on Twitter, PlayStation fanboys and all that talk trash and don't want other people to play the game, so they can just talk trash that their console's better than the other? Sure, you have that, but that's not really the true advantage of games being built for the PlayStation 5 or exclusively for any console. That's not the real argument, right? Sure, the fanboys are there talking about it, right? And you even have people talk about, oh, it devalues the console, which is really a concern for the business, not so much for the gamer. Those are not the true arguments, you know, of the advantage of keeping games exclusive to console or exclusively building console. The advantage, the actual true advantage of this, is the best way I can explain this. Let me start with a little analogy, right? And the analogy I use is a hotel room, right? I'll use this, right? And I think if I use this analogy, people will understand. So let's say you rent a room in a hotel. You book it online. Online says, yep, here's your hotel room. So what do you expect from a hotel room? You expect a clean bed, you know, a refrigerator, got the microwave, you got the showers, everything all set up, you know, got your AC going, boom. You go in, you check in, you pay your money, you get the hotel room, now you go to your room. As soon as you go to your room, you notice the AC is not working. You're like, all right, the AC is not working. Then all of a sudden you open up the bathroom, the shower head is gone. They don't even have a tub. And you're like, what's going on here? So you're like, hey, wait a minute. You're missing certain basic things from the room. So you go downstairs and you're like, hey, my room's not really fully equipped. The refrigerator's not working and there's no shower. What's going on here? And they tell you, oh, I'm sorry, sir, but none of the rooms have these amenities because we're planning for the future. We have this few big future upgrades. We're going to have next generation showers that massage your back. It's going to be great. It's going to be great for the consumers, all this stuff. It also reduces water waste, so we could save up to 20,000 gallons a year. All this great future planning that's going to be next generation. And it sounds great. The only problem is you pay for the room now. So you want your amenities and all the stuff that's in the room now. This is what you pay for. You didn't pay for the room to have future stuff. The future stuff is fine. If Hilton wants to do all that stuff and it brings all these great adventures, cool. But what does that have to do with the stuff you pay for now? You went and rented this room. This is what you rent now. Now, since the Hilton in this particular doesn't have that, you're going to leave and you're going to go to a hotel that delivers what you want now, because that's what you pay for. And that's the example with the console, right? When it comes to console with the PC, right? When you buy, in particular, the PS5, and I'll use the PlayStation 5 example, right? The PlayStation 5 and the advantages that the console has is it has its own first-party developers. That means they have these group of developers that are part of the company that sells this console, that built that console, and they were there with the planning and all the inputs of what makes this console great. It is their responsibility to optimize this console to the fullest. That means 100% focus should be on this console. You are the first party. That is your job. That is your duty. That is what you're getting paid to do. So when a customer pays $500 or $400 for a PS5, the main thing this customer get is not a generic device. No, this customer gets a console that is backed by its primary first-party developers. Therefore, those first-party developers will bring the best optimizations for that console. every other developer, they're not obligated to do that. And what I mean by every other developer is the third party. EA is not obligated to best optimize the PS5. Neither is Capcom, neither is Square Enix, neither is Konami, you name them all. None of them have the responsibility to fully realize every technology the PlayStation 5 console has. But the first party do. It's their job. You work for the company who decided to make a console, and they sold that console to the consumer. We pay for it, therefore you owe us. This is not about feelings of treating us special or they like us. We don't give a damn. We paid you money. Do your job. That's it. For the PC gamers who do not like Sony's strategy, the problem is you did not pay them. The only obligation Sony has to any PC gamer is the game-by-game cases that Sony decides to provide PC gamers. They do not owe you a long-term strategy. You did not buy a PC. Sony did not force you to buy a PC. That is not their product. They didn't convince you and say, hey, buy a PC. This is our product. We're going to take care of you. They did not have that arrangement with you. That arrangement is with PS5 console gamers. PS5 console gamers bought the hardware device from Sony. So now there is a financial agreement that, hey, I buy your hardware. You provide the best services possible for this hardware that we bought from you. The agreement you PC gamers made is from the individual component manufacturers that when put together create the PC. So that's Nvidia, Intel, AMD, all that stuff. That's the agreement you made with them. So you have to take it up with them for the best optimization, all that stuff. Everybody else is third party. They do what they want. They don't even have to make a game on PC. Third party don't even have to make a game on PS5. They have no obligation to make games for platforms that they don't want to, right? Because they don't actually own it. But on consoles, in particular PlayStation 5, they have an obligation. It is your console. You have a first party. You need to make games, and those games better take full advantage and full optimizations for the console. Now, when you do day-and-date multi-platform development, it is not possible to fully optimize a console in comparison to just making a game for the console. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how much you invest in tools. There is no way multi-platform development will achieve the same level of optimization for the console as strictly developing from the ground up one game on that specific hardware. That form of development will always be best for the console. Sure, if you do that, you pretty much exclude all the PC gamers. And some people feel that's anti-consumer. The problem is you are not the consumer of PlayStation. The consumer of PlayStation is those that put up the money for their console. That is literally who the consumer are. That is literally the one who consuming PlayStation products. We literally swipe the check, the credit card, the debit card, whatever method of payment you did to play, that's the PlayStation consumer. Because they actually bought a device directly from PlayStation. Therefore, since we're the consumer, you owe us, PlayStation, the best service. We paid you for it. This is not about feelings. This is not about fanboy wars. This is not about me worrying about who's excluded. All I care about is I paid my money for a device PlayStation made. Therefore, PlayStation is obligated to me and any other consumer that paid for that console to get the best service. It is owed obligation. It is financially owed. You PC gamers did not do that. The only time you financially owe Sony anything, or Sony owes you due to a financial obligation, is on a game-by-game basis. Any game you bought that Sony decided to make, they're obligated to ensure that that product works, they update it, is in working condition, kind of like how The Last of Us 2 was a bad port. They owe you an obligation to fix that. Because if you bought that game and it's not running well, it's not optimized for your setup, then you could go to Sony. Hey, I bought The Last of Us Part 1 remake on PC. It is a bad optimized port. You need to update this. You owe me this. I paid money. You are obligated to make this, game run well on my PC. That is consumer obligation. You don't have that when it comes to the future plans of PlayStation, because you did not buy the device for the future planning of games. As a PC gamer, you get what you get the way Sony gives it to you. They have no obligation to support PC. On the other hand, they have 100% obligation to provide the very best optimized support for their console. They literally made it. They have to do it. It is their product. So this strategy, for 2 to 3 year wait or whatever, because the 2 or 3 year is an inconsequential number for me. All I care about is Sony is making a game. They only care about the development on the PS5. And once that game is done, built and launched for sale, at that point, whatever they feel they're going to do for PC is whatever they're going to do. At that point, is water under the bridge. I don't really care. If it comes out a year later, 2 years later, whatever. It doesn't matter. All I want is make the most optimized console game you can on yours. Because very few people are going to do it. Very few third-party developers will do it. The only 2 developers I truly, absolutely trust for the most optimized console version of any game, when they make it on PlayStation 5, is Kojima and Take-Two. Because they are very great. When Kojima makes a PlayStation exclusively, he does a great, phenomenal job, and he has shown generation after generation after generation to make games that look spectacular on PlayStation consoles. The next one, and this is pretty amazing because they still kind of do multi-platform, is Rockstar. But usually with their big AAA games, they only develop on console first, and then they release the PC port like a year later. And if you notice with Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, they don't even launch the multiplayer the same day. The single player comes. So first they launch the console version, right? The single player comes out first. And then like a month or 2 later, the multiplayer comes out. And then a year later, the PC comes out. So they kind of break their stuff down in stages. And you see their games usually are very well optimized and look very, very good. But you might think, well, Take-Two is a great example of at least 2 platforms. So why can't Sony do it? The reason why Sony can't do it like Take-Two is because Take-Two takes like 8 years to make a game. PlayStation doesn't have 8 years to make one game. They just, that's not normal. They don't got that. Take-Two, they can literally take a whole generation to release a game, and they'll be perfectly fine with that. So different animal. They work on one game, and that's the only game you're gonna see from Take-Two for like 7, 8 years, 9 years. First party studios for PlayStation, they have to be a little bit more faster than that, right? So that's really it. Ignore the fanboy talk. And those of you that don't want to ignore the fanboy talk is simply because you're arguing from bad faith and you just want your game. Listen, got it. You have a PC. You want greatness on your PC, despite the trash talking of, it's interactive movies and all that stuff. But as soon as Sony says, fine, you're going to wait 3 years. Oh my God, how can you do this? So you trash talk about PlayStation games, but then as soon as Sony comes out, like, don't worry about it. And, you can wait 2-3 years. Everybody starts flipping out, and now it's a problem. Come on now, which is it? Listen, in the end, a lot of these PlayStation grades are phenomenal. Chef's kiss. They are greatness. These are Game of the Year level titles, and people want it. And if you are a PC gamer, believe me, I understand why you want it. I don't blame you. And I understand why you rather play on PC than console. You spent money on better hardware. You want to take advantage of it. I got it. But understand, Sony is obligated to the people that gave them money. It's not fanboy. It's not console war. It is literally money. Okay? They got paid to do a service. They must deliver the best service to their paying customers for their console. You guys on PC, you get the best service game by game basis. So any game Sony decides to release on PC, and if you decide to buy it, that game itself is their promise to give you the best service for that game. That's all you get. That's it. PC is not Sony's device. That is not a PlayStation. They're not responsible for that. You get what you get. I hope this video clears things up, and I hope it fundamentally makes an understanding. Either way, if there's gamers out there that don't want to understand and want to argue in bad faith to the PlayStation community, it doesn't matter. I think Sony has an understanding of what the community wants. Remember, we've seen videos, I've shown videos on this channel. Sony is about quality and providing the very best quality to the consumers. So I do think they do have a fundamental understanding, and not to appease the fanboys, but to appease gamers that expect quality. And I think through quality is how they're going to find success. Now, do I absolutely think every single game is going to be subjected to 2 or 3 years? I don't think so. I think there's going to be cases where you might see 1 or 2 games day and day, primarily like the gas games or free-to-plays. Especially if Sony makes a free-to-play, I don't think a free-to-play is going to max out the capabilities of the PlayStation 5. To be honest, I think it'll still be on PS4 because the free-to-play purpose, again, is the mass audience. But you let me know what you think. Hit me up in the comment section. Like and subscribe the video, and membership opportunities is open if you want to support the channel. Either way, just enjoy the content, and I hope to see you this Wednesday as we review and the crew talks about the PlayStation Showcase. You guys take care. Peace.